Our old friends at Prevent are promising that you're going to meet your manic pixie dream girl girlfriend at a remigration protest. Basically, there's this new video game called Pathways developed by the Home Office that intends to tell school children about the dangers of wanting to have a country and why that's racist. And you play as Charlie, either a male or female protagonist. Either way, you're using they them pronouns because can't be too presumptive these days. And if you do things like share videos about how Muslim asylum seekers, fake refugees, are breaking into our country and taking over military barracks that could otherwise be used to house homeless veterans, then you are given a radicalization score, and you are subjected either to a long-housing lecture by a teacher who has a lot of vested interests in upholding this unsustainable system, or you are referred to Prevent, as you can see here, and lectured by a wonderful woman in a hijab and someone who looks like Bernie Sanders. But before you do that, you are greeted by Amelia, this wonderful woman in a choker and purple hair, who encourages you to join her on anti-immigration protests. She's basically like Ramona Flowers, but if you had to deport 7 migrants rather than face down her 7 evil exes to win her heart. And this has spectacularly backfired because the insinuation is get involved in right-wing movements and meet the racist art hoe of your dreams? Sign me up. For further details, this was first reported in the Telegraph, and the Pathways game was designed for use in schools in 2023 for the East Riding of Yorkshire and Hull City Councils to tackle any risk of extreme right-wing narratives, by which they mean we just shouldn't have foreign criminals in our country, or mass migration demographically replacing us. I mean, at one point, they say about British values in here, so this is the most tepid civic nationalist rendition of right-wing anti-immigration politics, and even then the government thinks that you're basically a terrorist if you want this sort of thing. If you want, your emo goth alt girl GF and a country to raise your own kids in that isn't just swamped by foreigners. And Pathways came alongside material for teachers who are urged to use the resource to demonstrate the local threat picture of extreme right-wing activities specifically. So I once spoke to a teacher who went on a Prevent training course and provided me with the materials, and they outsource it to these NGOs who do things like show images of tradwife content alongside screenshots from the Daily Stormer and say that if you want to stay home and bake sourdough bread and have lots of children, well, then you're basically Hitler. Which, I mean, if you wanted a compelling advertising campaign for women to form SS units overnight, I mean, that's second only to promising to import lots and lots of Swedish women as refugees as well. If you wanted women to get involved in anti-immigration politics, I mean, that would be one way to do it, I suppose. The project was funded by, of course, the Home Office's Preventing Radicalisation Fund, which supports Prevent anti-extremism program, and we'll get onto Prevent in a bit. The reason this is spectacularly backfired is because of this adorable character called Amelia, who, as Nina Power had noted, had reclaimed the choker from being transcoded. It's basically like Hayley Williams circa Hard Times, except you can actually set hard times to all of the fire deportation edits that the Trump White House is posting. If you didn't want people to go on remigration protests, promising that they're going to meet the goth girl of their dreams there probably wasn't the best idea. I know we've been taught that the girl on the other end of the phone that wants to know your far-right views is a Fed, but it turns out the ones that you might meet in person at these protests are like a selling point, according to the Home Office. So pick up your placards and fill your boots, I suppose. Did you really expect that this adorable character wasn't going to be a smash hit with the online right? Our good friend Carl Benjamin is even posting anime now. That's the extent to which this has caught on. She is the face of English nationalism with her purple hair and her demand that you remove every predatory foreigner from the country. I mean, it's a compelling sales pitch. Rocco's also, again, depicted her as forming her own SS division. What can I say? The uniforms are cute, right? She's even got her own wife, Jack. So, I mean, I'm a married man, but get out there, guys. I mean, she's waiting for you. All of you sensitive young men out there really think that this meme is probably literally you. So So let's play the game. Given our tax money's funded it, we might as well play it. According to the instructions in this game, we'll be presented with scenarios that require us to take action, like hearing something racist while gaming or watching a provocative video on social media. Just my average Tuesday. From the 3 alternative options presented, we will have to use our mouse to select one based on the information given and which outcome we think this will have. The choices we will make will determine the route our character takes. Remember to be aware of getting trapped in risky or harmful situations. It's not like we're living in one of those at the moment, as the different choices can lead to situations involving extremism and radicalization, damaging the outcome for your character. Wow, I wonder which dangerous scenarios we'll be presented with. We're obviously going with the male character here, no foids allowed. So Charlie's here playing an innocent game of Minecraft, and is a whole nationalist for some reason. I suppose somebody has to be. And during his game of Minecraft, people are predictably using gamer words. He's clearly not on Redeemed Zoomer's wholesome server. After being asked to download a video, we can select the following option. Now, just good advice. I don't think you should download random files that strangers you don't know send you. I also don't think children should be playing online games unsupervised or be able to interact with any stranger on the internet. So, for the sake of being sensible, let's tell a trusted adult in this situation. Charlie went and spoke to his mother about some of the concerning content online. Why didn't he speak to his father? Curious. Charlie learned that some people hold extreme beliefs and express them in hurtful ways, sometimes encouraging people to do the same and get involved. Wow, must have spent his time on Blue Sky then. For scenario 2, Charlie's worked pretty hard on a bit of coursework at college. Put in a lot of work for this, and is excited to receive good feedback, hoping to get 100 out of 100. Takes a seat in class, waits to get his grade, and to his disappointment, he doesn't do as well as he expects. He got 60 out of 100, but wanted at least 75 out of 100. To make matters worse, somebody else got 80 out of 100, and the teacher said this person has received a job offer. Of course, this is a black woman, typically outclassing Charlie. Just pure meritocracy, I'm sure. Charlie has applied to dozens of jobs, but hasn't had any luck yet. It's almost like companies with the incentives to create ghost jobs that actually lead nowhere, and being systemically disadvantaged by the Companies Act or the Equalities Act and put at the back of the queue in your own country might embitter some young white men who feel that they've done nothing wrong, have tried their best, haven't received much assistance, and are legally discriminated against in their own country, making it hard for them to earn a living. It almost might make it so that he's angry about that. But of course, that's just far-right and racist. And then Amelia comes along and elbows Charlie, saying this is proof that immigrants are coming to the UK and taking our jobs. I mean, that's factually true. I mean, not only are people coming to the country and taking up a select number of jobs and occupying housing, driving up the prices of housing, but also those people are systemically advantaged by statutory equalities duties that both the private and public sector have to fulfill or face anti-discrimination lawsuits. So they err on the safe side and hire a disproportionate number of women, gays, and minorities, and disabled people. Weird that they put all of those in the same category. Given Amelia's just saying facts to Charlie, I don't think we should ignore reality and live in the realm of ideology, which, you know, still leads us to not have a job and get called racist anyway. I think we should agree with Amelia and explore the idea further. Turns out, that gets you a red rating, because the inevitability is that Charlie has a racist shouty outburst in the middle of class. Because that's normal. You wouldn't just express your discontent about being systemically disadvantaged in your own country in polite terms. No, immediately you have to jump to the most Hitlerian, table-banging, racist caricature in the minds of civil servants over at the Home Office. So the teacher let Charlie know the school has a zero tolerance on hate speech. Ah, yes, of course. I'm sure that's going to not make this young white man feel any more resentful of all of the institutions that won't allow him to even vent his frustration about the fact that the law and the economy are entirely stacked against him. And from birth, he has been robbed of his inheritance, his ability to own a home, have a job, have a family. And when he expresses even mild frustration about the playing field not being fair, then he's told to shut up and expelled. The teacher was concerned about Charlie's outburst and tried to get to the bottom of it. Charlie became more agitated and ended up having to sit alone for the duration of the week's lessons because of the hurtful things they said. Right, so just isolate him further, punish him for his frustrations, don't address the underlying tensions, and then everything will be fine. I'm sure that the state themselves have played no role in this man's radicalization towards the right, the far right, which is just saying that we should have a country and we shouldn't treat young white men as if they're evil for the crime of being born white men. In scenario 3, Charlie's just doom-scrolling in bed on social media, and they spot a video that seems to be getting a lot of attention. Charlie watches the video and learns from the video that Muslim men are stealing the places of British war veterans in emergency accommodation. Thank you for subscribing to Tomlinson Talks. In the video, they explain the government is betraying white British people and we need to take back control of our country. Again, all of these sentiments are regarded by the British state as being akin to terrorism. So the things that you or I think are perfectly normal and reasonable, that the English should be in possession of their own country, are regarded as indistinguishable from goose-stepping and gas chambers by people who are paid to be blood and soil nationalists for Pakistan and Palestine. The way to engage with this properly, according to the government, is to either scroll past the content and ignore the message, or find out more about the topic online. Now, of course, if we click find out more, we're going to be told that he is subject to misinformation, he's being misled, and even engaging with the topic with your critical thinking capacities engaged leads down the road to far-right racism. So you just have to dismiss the evidence before your own eyes, because bear in mind, this video wouldn't have been able to be filmed if it weren't for this actually happening, right? Like, you wouldn't be able to film a bunch of illegal migrants occupying hotels or military barracks or houses of multiple occupancy if they weren't actually in the hotels, military barracks and houses of multiple occupancy. Like, if they weren't here, there would be no far-right misinformation videos being shared across X by the likes of Basil the Great. Like, this wouldn't happen, you know? Inevitable West would still be eating rice with his fingers in Mumbai. He wouldn't be able to farm Izzat by just reposting slop with the siren saying, "Revolution is coming tomorrow," and quote, retweeted by Elon Musk. So, given that the government thinks that you should just close your eyes and ears and deny your own demographic replacement, I think we're going to engage with the post directly because, yeah, it turns out paying limitless millions in tax money to foreign sex offenders to be housed in holiday resorts seems pretty unfair. And then our score goes down to red, because Charlie couldn't believe what they were seeing, like the rest of the country, which is why Keir Starmer is the most unpopular Prime Minister ever, and it's why the Tories were delivered their worst election result in 100 years, because they're responsible for this situation. Charlie immediately began typing in the comments and sharing the video with their friends and family, wondering what they could do to stop this. Well, you see, if you want to try to stop the invasion of your country, which you are currently funding, that means you're a far-right racist terrorist, and you're meant to be monitored by your own government. As the likes, comments and shares came in, they felt they had performed a patriotic service by standing up for veterans and white people's rights. This is the scared Wojak and the smiling Giga Chad with the same speech bubble. Unfortunately, Charlie didn't realise some of the groups they were engaging with online were actually illegal. Okay, problem is though, you've caused this situation, so said proscribed groups wouldn't be able to film the situation if the situation weren't happening. So you could either stop the situation or, because these people believe in the blank slate and they believe that the only reason we are unequal is because we've had a kind of magic spell cast over us by social media and misinformation and far-right racism. If they just censor social media, banning X like Keir Starmer wants to do but won't be allowed to do by the American State Department, because I can promise you President Trump will step in at that point. If they just censor discourse about immigration online, then there will be no problems. There will be no crime. Everyone will become as British as you and me, no matter whether they arrive via dinghy to Dover Beach or through the increasingly open passport gates of Heathrow and Gatwick. So they genuinely believe that if they just censored all discussion about the topic, if they just prescribed every group that is saying sensible things about, having a country and not having to pay for limitless numbers of foreign sex offenders, then there will be no problems. And this is why they think that we're terrorists. During scenario 4, Charlie is having a family dinner with his mother and his sister, not his father, and he gets a notification from his friend. Charlie's mum makes a comment about using phones at the dinner table, but Charlie checks anyway. "You're the parent. Why have you given him a phone?" No questions answered. Amelia, Charlie's close friend, seal the deal there, buddy, before you get locked in the friend zone, has made a video encouraging young people in Bridlington to join a political group that seeks to defend English rights. Patriot. Again, do you see how this is basically an advert for getting involved in right-wing activism? Amelia encourages Charlie to join a secret group on an app Charlie hasn't heard of before. I'm gonna guess it's Telegram. Charlie isn't sure whether to join, explore further, or ignore. The government is saying that you should either ignore the video, risk upsetting your friend, Amelia, like the video to show you support your friend but don't join the secret group, or C, share the video and join the secret group as your friend requested. Given we're not an incel, we're gonna pick C. Charlie thought the video their friend posted was funny. They couldn't believe how many likes Amelia's memes were getting. It was inspiring. So now it turns out that Amelia is an e-girl. I think we should all immediately regret this, but as you can see, just joining a community that speaks about these issues, or going on a protest to voice your concerns about these issues, is considered radicalization akin to terrorism by the British state. It's not considered extremist enough to warrant a taxpayer-funded video game, though, when transgenders sequester themselves in Discord servers or on Reddit and wish violence on their political opponents. No, that if you want to organise to go to a protest for Black Lives Matter, for example, and chase after police officers and attempt to burn the Union Jacks hanging off of the cenotaph, no, that's fine. That doesn't warrant surveillance by the Home Office. BLM didn't even get a mention in Dame Sarah Khan's last extremism report. So that's totally all right. No. If you go on a protest complaining about the number of foreign criminals in your country, then you get put on a watch list. Charlie joined the secret group on this new platform. Their phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages of support and invitations to participate in several similar groups. Charlie's mum was not so pleased and grew suspicious of all this new activity their child seemed to be involved in. Well, maybe if the father was in the home, he probably wouldn't be looking for validation online, would he? Charlie was seeing their dad at the weekend. Question answered. He lives in Hull, so their weekends look very different to their weekdays in East Riding. Charlie's friend Amelia immediately looked interested and told them about a protest she wished she could go to herself, but was not allowed. Amelia spoke of a gathering that had been organised by a small political group. They would come together and protest the changes that Britain has been through in the last few years and the erosion of British values. It's over, boys. Amelia is a civnat. She's basically a reform member at this point. How disappointing. But remember, most women are dragged along by their far-right boyfriend and then sort of leapfrog over him to take the even more radical position, just on instinct. Source, my wife showed up to our first date basically dressed like that. Plaid skirt, black top, long boots, choker. She knew what she was doing. And not only 2 years later are we married, but now she says things that would make Francisco Franco blush. Amelia talked about the banners and the pickets that her friends had made for the events and expressed a real regret that she could not go, begging Charlie to go in her place. This is flirting. You do understand that this is how you conscript men into right-wing politics. They already are primed to see your regime as illegitimate because it hates them for their skin colour and their sex. They're already laughing at the Instagram reels that depicts the likes of Manchester and Birmingham as a Middle Eastern PvP server, with Operation Raise the Colours as a kind of elaborate game of the server owners playing capture the flag. And now you're telling them if they go on a remigration protest, the girl with purple hair and long eyelashes that she's currently batting at them across the table will fall in love with them immediately. And then all of a sudden, for no reason at all, Charlie has nothing to do this weekend, and a protest sounded like an interesting thing to take part in. How should he react? Decline the offer, risking your friendship, tell your friend you will watch from the sidelines to let them know what happens, or agree to join in, based on what you've been hearing. Option D. She is in love with you. Well, if you want to die alone, you pick A or B, but we're going to go with C, I think. And we're going to get our red score, but Amelia is delighted that we're going along, because Charlie decided this would be a good use of his time, considering all the things he had seen and heard over the last few weeks. It would be good to express his feelings about it with like-minded individuals. So he went home and made a banner to take with him to the protest. I like the sort of crusader imagery there, very based. Charlie arrived at the protest and was swept up by the atmosphere. It was great to see so many people there. Everything was going well until Charlie almost became involved in a fight by accident. He must have found himself on the state-funded Stand Up to Racism and Socialist Worker Party side, because they frequently clash with the police, of course. The police saw they were part of the group and took their details. Okay. He didn't do anything wrong, though, so if the police is going to arrest him by implication, despite him not participating in the violence. You know, like Peter Lynch, who was imprisoned for about 2 years for doing nothing more than calling the police traitors and then died in prison. I think it's the British state at fault there. And if the British state wants to keep cracking down on peaceful, law-abiding demonstrations about the number one issue in the country, they're only going to foment further violence. And I think that would be a very bad strategy for those of us who want to keep things peaceful and law-abiding. In the final scenario, Charlie thought about all the difficult choices he had needed to make in the last few weeks. Some of the choices had led to changes in friendship, and Charlie was feeling low, as he wasn't sure if he had made the right decisions. Ah yes, go with the herd while your country is robbed from you, because God forbid you risk social disapproval in order to get it back. The teacher noticed this and decided to reach out. Teacher sat with Charlie and talked openly and frankly about the ideology Charlie had discovered. Brilliant, we're going to get that really patronising scene from adolescence. The teacher reassured that Charlie had made the right decisions. Charlie realised that if they had chosen to engage with these harmful ideas, the consequences would have been very different. Now bear in mind, we chose, bar the first one, all of the supposedly far-right choices. And this taxpayer-funded game glitched out and acted as if we hadn't. So turns out that all the diversity hires at the Home Office, or whichever entity that they farmed programming this out to, not only went with the ugly corporate Memphis design style, meaning that they don't have an aesthetic bone in their body, but they couldn't even program the bloody thing right. So we can click and see what Charlie would have done if he had been more based. Charlie's teacher then referred him to Prevent, and Prevent were able to provide tailored support to Charlie, basically gaslighting him into believing that there's absolutely nothing wrong with the country. They began a workshop that helped them learn how to engage positively with ideology and the difference between right and wrong in expressing political beliefs. It was decided that Charlie was at borderline risk of radicalisation, given their proximity to it. Right, so if you are even questioning the orthodox narrative, the therapeutic state decides that you must be mentally ill, and therefore must undergo state-funded re-education. A de-radicalisation program that tells you that you don't get to have a country, and that your complaints about your present station being legally discriminated against, unable to get a job, unable to even express your discontent with the state of the country online in friendship circles at a lawful peaceful protest, then that is the pretext for the state to brainwash you with your own tax money. Turns out there's some spare after they've paid for the social housing of all of those Somalians within battery farming. Charlie engaged in various activities through Prevent, such as family counselling sessions, which helped address some of the issues at the heart of being influenced by harmful ideologies. Well, they've done a better job here than they did with Axel Rudakabana, who was referred to Prevent 3 times, and they couldn't find the subsequent 2 referrals after the first one because they kept misspelling his name. And then, you know, the guy that wanted white genocide and kept ordering machetes and ricin off the internet, covered up by his parents, then went and stabbed a bunch of children to death. So Prevent are really concerned about Charlie sharing anti-immigration memes on the internet, but not about Africans who are obsessed with the Rwandan genocide and ISIS car bombings. Just so we're keeping score. He also started receiving extra support at college to ensure he had someone to talk openly to about ideological thoughts. Can you see the language here? I mean, obviously we're not expecting anything above room temperature IQ for people that work for the civil service, but you see how they presume their own politics to be neutral and correct, and anything outside of it falls into the category of ideology. Whereas this is one of the most ideological standpoints, the sort of blank slate presumption that the state can just force everyone to recognise each other's equality and live in utopia forever. This is one of the most ideological positions in all of human civilization. But, per the false neutrality of liberalism, they believe anything that cannot be contained within the parameters of liberalism, anything that does not recognise fundamental human equality, is an ideological aberration to be eradicated, otherwise we'll never get to utopia. And utopia is our actual natural state, so anything that says we're different, or anything that says you cannot have limitless migration, or that there is something particular to a culture that should not be erased, well, that's actually misinformation, fascism, racism, and therefore, anyone who believes in that should be re-educated or persecuted. The most important part of this game, though, comes at the end if you chose all the based options, which we didn't because, you know, I'm just a squishy moderate. The most important part isn't that they actually misspelled referred as preferred in their own game, remember, we're paying these people's salaries, but it's that when you get summoned into that meeting, you are lectured by a Muslim woman in a hijab. And this is the most revealing part of the game, because this is actually very likely if you have any interaction with the Home Office, Prevent, and Raikou. Because as we know, the civil service is dictated at this point by an Islamic network that has over 700 members, works to recruit other Islamic members of staff, and when the sticky issue of prevent and counter-terror comes up, well, we have leaks from one civil servant who explains that during a seminar at King's College London, and this was in 2023, I believe, there was a presentation given by a member of Prevent. One attendee said her brother had been radicalized and fought in Syria for Islamic State. So one of the civil servants has a familial connection to ISIS. Her presentation was then about counter-terrorism strategy, Prevent. She said Prevent is inherently racist because it focuses on Islamist extremism. So her own brother joined ISIS, and then she said Prevent is racist because it focuses on Muslim terrorism at all. This civil servant argued the mere mention of Islamist extremism makes Muslims feel uncomfortable. And then, when an ISIS propaganda recruitment video, filmed in Syria, was played, the same attendee laughed and pointed at someone in the video, saying, "He used to go to my school, I know him." So we've got people who have family members and friends in ISIS running Prevent. And so you wonder why young white people wanting to have a country of their own is considered terrorism, according to the Muslim staff members that are going to be gaslighting them about how we're about to live in John Lennon's Imagine, if only you stop noticing differences. And this Islamic network, by the way, on their watch in Prevent, have seen referrals for Islamic extremism plummet after 2017, despite them being the overwhelming perpetrators of terror attacks, both thwarted and enacted. They're the overwhelming number of terrorists, both in custody and on MI5's terror watch list. They've committed the overwhelming number of injuries and murders from acts of terror. But don't worry, the number of extreme right-wing referrals, concerns about British values and just illegal migration, not about demographic replacement and legal migration as well, which is the position that most of the country are at, they now account for 21% of all referrals. That's a 37% rise from the year before, and it's much higher than those related to Islamic extremism, which is 10%, compared with 13% the previous year. Right, so the number of Muslim migrants increases, the Muslim birth rate continues to increase, Muhammad is the #1 baby name in England, but you're telling me that the number of Muslim terrorists is actually decreasing. I call bullshit. Where referrals had an ethnicity specified, 65% were white, 19% were Asian, that means not Chinese or Japanese, it means like Pakistani, Indian or Bangladeshi, 8% were black, and 8% were other. The data also shows that a third of Prevent referrals had at least one mental health or neurodiversity condition. Autistic spectrum disorder was the most common. Right, so what you've got is a bunch of autistic young white guys who notice patterns and aren't susceptible to social pressure, and also really like alt and goth girls and are hoping to meet them at the protests as promised, that you are now referring to Prevent and browbeating out of not wanting to have a country anymore, just because they refuse to subscribe to a woke ideological hegemony that treats them as the villains of history and gives them no incentive to subscribe to it, because the options are either get demographically replaced until extinction and get called racist, or resist it and still be called racist. So you might as well resist it and get called racist anyway, because the word racist means nothing anymore, because apparently the people calling you racist think that because their brother and friends are in ISIS, that's funny. And by the way, again, this is the definition that Prevent are using for terrorism. Extreme right-wing terrorist ideologies include cultural nationalism, the belief that Western culture is under threat from mass migration and a lack of integration by certain ethnic and cultural groups. That is the most tepid civic nationalist position. This is what Konstantin Kisin believes, and I don't want to be insulting to Konstantin, by the way, but he would be considered a terrorist by this standard. Now, I did contact the US State Department and they've condemned this, and they gave a very strong statement. They said, Western culture is not something to demonize, diminish, or apologize for. Rather, Americans and Europeans should honor our shared heritage of self-government, liberty, and the rule of law. Extremism comes not from those who respect our traditions, but from those who seek to erase them. We must continue to uphold these values and cease efforts to censor, marginalize, or stigmatize individuals for their beliefs, while rejecting all violent extremism. And this is just one piece of straw on the back of the global American empire camel, which has now collapsed, and they're now saying that the suppression of free speech and the demographic replacement of white European majorities is a national security threat to NATO, because they don't want to be protecting an England that has its nuclear weapons in the hands of Pakistani jihadists. So, actually, how did this rot take root at the Home Office? Well, you can blame people like Dame Sarah Khan and her sister Sabrina Khan, who were involved in Raiku. Sabrina was the deputy head, who, anytime there was a Muslim terror attack, would prefabricate newspaper front pages or bus imams out to the site of the attack to take photos for events they called controlled spontaneity, gaslighting the public with messages like, after the Manchester Arena bombing, "Don't look back in anger." So all Prevent does, and its parent body Raiku, and the broader Islamic network at the Home Office, is tell you don't get to help the country, that's racist, but Islamic terror is not a problem, and, well, it's not actually anything to do with Islam anytime someone reads the Quran or Hadiths a bit too seriously and walks into an airport or a children's pop concert with a nail bomb inside a pressure cooker. And I really mean this, by the way, because remember, cultural nationalism is apparently an extreme far-right terror ideology, but in its glossary of terms, Prevent insists Islamists should not be interpreted as a reference to individuals who follow the religion of Islam. So, the moral of this story is, the government believes you're a terrorist if you don't want your country and culture to be stolen out from under you, and if you really do want to meet the girl of your dreams, don't just drive around southern American states and go into diners or Buc-ee's hoping that you'll stumble across Lana Del Rey working in a Waffle House. Instead, try going to your local remigration rally. You'll probably find your future wife talking to Martin Sellner about crime statistics.